Are you a business owner looking to secure your financial future and create a lasting legacy? I'm Leah Garcia, a financial strategist and insurance professional, and I specialize in guiding businesses with up to 50 employees on how to effectively protect and transfer their wealth. We break down silos with my unique approach, the Wall of Wealth. Imagine a seamless collaboration among your CPA, tax attorney, estate planner, and insurance expert, each playing their part in perfect harmony, ensuring your financial strategy is not just effective, but a true masterpiece. My passion stems from my own journey, from growing up on food stamps to dreaming of building community centers that empower others. Together, we'll craft a roadmap that not only safeguards your assets, but also nurtures generational wealth for your loved ones. Let's transform your vision into reality. After all, you can't measure the heart of a champion just by looking at them. Join me, and let's make your financial future shine.
Well, happy Wealthy Wednesday. Come on in, champions. Today is going to be a lot of fun. You're going to enjoy this. This is one you definitely want to watch. You're going to want to replay. You're going to want to reshare this. I promise you. I just can't even believe my guest that I have here today. He is really and truly a LinkedIn celebrity. Before we get to that, though, I just want to kind of talk to you about our topic. Our topic today is standards over expectations, how to create team culture. How many of us are looking to build a team? Maybe you're building a team for your company. Maybe you're building a team within your family. Maybe you're building a team within a nonprofit or foundation. We're all looking how to leverage teams and how to create teams. And I will say this, my guest speaker to me, he's like a LinkedIn celebrity. I got to tell you, if you're joining us from YouTube, Facebook, we love you over there. We'd love you to come on over to LinkedIn also, because there's a whole new culture, a whole new world that you may not be aware of here on LinkedIn. And I've been on LinkedIn for quite a while. I think I joined it back in maybe 2016, never really used it. And then as my career ebbed and flowed, I would get on and off of it. And of course, during the pandemic, became more intentional about it. And I just can't even believe that I'm doing these live shows and the things that I do on here. But you know, all of us have somebody who shows up for us, who doesn't really need to. They don't need to show up for us. They don't maybe even know us really personally, but for some reason they pour into us. Give me a 1 in the chat if you've ever had somebody pour belief into you with no expectation. Maybe you don't work for their business, but they just give you some kind words. Maybe it's a friend who sees that you've gone through the struggle and they just, give you a big hug and some kind words. I mean, if you've ever had that, I would love for you to put a 1 in the chat, because this person really exemplifies that for me. I was watching all his incredible content, and if you don't know him, you're going to want to know him. I promise you. He does a lot of great things. He shows how he's doing his weight training and his fitness progress. He shows about his salsa dancing. He teaches us about team culture. And really, whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner looking to create team culture, or you're just looking to up-level yourself, I would highly recommend that you connect with him. And he was definitely somebody for me who showed up for me. We had never had a coffee chat. We never had a personal conversation, but he would every so often just say some kind words to me, just make some kind comments on something I'd post. Sometimes we show up and we don't know if this is the right thing to do. We don't know what we're doing. We show up scared with our shaky legs and our voice trembling. And we're like, gosh, somebody see this. And when somebody can do that for you, you can't even quantify that. You truly can't. And I'm so honored that he was gracious enough, and I don't even know how he found the time out of his schedule to be here with us. But I promise you, today is going to be incredible. You guys are going to really, really enjoy this. And I'm going to read this real quick here. He says, my mission is to simply to help people, I'd say entrepreneurs, business owners, discover their God-given identity, hear from him consistently, and live from the place with confidence and identity where true transformation begins and everything else flows naturally. And I can attest to what he does on LinkedIn is truly natural. I love him. So anyway, I'm excited to introduce him to you. I'm sure he's probably already a good friend of yours. And if he's not, you're going to want him to be a good friend. So without further ado, please give it up for my incredible guest speaker, the one and only Mr. Chaz Horn. Welcome to Wealthy Wednesday, Mr. Chaz.
Leah, wow. I should have you follow me around and introduce me all the time.
That would
be amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So go ahead and kick it off for us, Chaz.
Sure. So, and by the way, I didn't realize your background with being on food stamps, and it's amazing to see where you are today, how you can help people. So that cycle, you broke that cycle. So kudos to that. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to immerse you in a story. It's based on a true story, but I've changed the names to protect the guilty. Okay? But if you listen, I believe this will speak to you in ways that you're not going to get from going through 695 slides of a PowerPoint deck. Okay? So, and then we're going to have, this is going to be brief, short, succinct, and Leah's going to have some conversations or questions for me. And if you have questions, in the chat. By the way, let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. Love to see where you guys are joining us from. So let's kick this off. Ethan Callahan, his office overlooked the Rockies, but he really didn't notice the view in weeks. At 42, he carried a particular exhaustion of a founder. Can you all relate to that? Who'd built something substantial only to watch it plateau. Summit Works, a SaaS company specializing in project management tools for construction. They had 41 employees, 15 million in annual revenue, and a culture that felt increasingly hollow. We're going to get into why it was increasingly hollow. The Tuesday morning sales meeting ground forward like rusty gears. Ethan stood at the whiteboard, marker squeaking, as he wrote the same metrics he'd written last quarter. Let me just stop here for a second. I remember where I used to have to attend a sales meeting first thing Monday morning. It was the worst experience, and it just sucked the life out of all the sales reps. Okay, just a side note. Now back to what Ethan was writing on the whiteboard. 50 outbound calls daily, 5 discovery meetings weekly, 2 closed deals monthly. His sales team nodded with glazed attention. Jenna from Enterprise Sales picked at her cuticles. Marcus scrolled on his phone under the table. Only Sarah, his newest hire, actually took notes. Curious, just think about this. What is your environment when you have a meeting? How do you show up? Questions? Ethan asked, knowing there wouldn't be any. Silence. They filed out through the glass wall. Ethan watched his team return to his desk. Within minutes, the energy shifted back to its familiar rhythm. Moderate activity, minimal intensity, acceptable mediocrity. Does this happen in your business? His phone buzzed. Meredith, his wife. Home for dinner? The girls want to see you. He texted back, late meeting. It was a lie. There was no meeting, just the grinding sensation that working harder was the only answer he knew. For founders out there, if you isolate yourself from your family, that's a red flag that you're going down. Okay? So 3 weeks later, Q2 results landed like a thud. Revenue flat, customer churn up 8%, pipeline velocity down 12%. Ethan called an emergency meeting, for his leadership team. Derek, his VP of sales, spread the numbers across the table like a coroner examining a body. We're making calls, Derek said, defensive. Activity is up. We're hitting dial metrics, but we're not closing, Ethan said. Market's soft. Competition's heating up. We need better scripts, maybe a pricing adjustment. The room went quiet. Kelly had been with Ethan since the beginning, back when Summit Works was 4 people in WeWork. She was the only executive who could challenge him directly. And she said, or we could stop pretending activity equals results. Ouch. Every quarter, she continued, every quarter we adjust tactics, new scripts, new quotas, new incentives, and every quarter, same result, a temporary bump followed by reversion. Just a $2 word that means they reverted back to where they were. We're managing expectations instead of raising standards. Ethan opened his mouth to argue. Then he closed it. She was right. That night, alone in the office with the city lights twinkling below, Ethan opened LinkedIn. He saw a post from someone named Chaz Horn. And the post read, you can tirelessly improve tactics, techniques, and strategies, stacking expectation after expectation, but without clear standards. And this is what we're going to talk about today. But without clear standards, people will revert to the same behavior. Standards drive transformation. Let me say that again. Standards drive transformation. Expectations alone just drive activity. Ethan read it 3 times, then he messaged Chaz. The gap. 2 weeks later, so Ethan and Chaz sat across at his office, at Ethan's office, in the same conference room where so many failing strategies have been hatched. Chaz was in his 50s, calm and direct with a bearing of someone who had seen these patterns before. Walk me through your sales process, Chaz said. In 90 minutes, Ethan laid out everything, their systems, their metrics, their expectations. Chaz took notes while asking clarifying questions. Finally, he set his pen down. Ethan, you have expectations, but I do not see a single standard. Ethan frowned. What's the difference? Expectations, this is such an important message, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Expectations are what you want people to do. Standards is how they show up to do it. Chaz leaned forward. Let me tell you about 2 college football teams I studied. One was the number 3 team. The other was the number 77th ranked team. When the coaches walked into team meetings in the number 3 team, players sat ready, no phones, notebooks open, complete silence. Not because of rules, but because there was a standard. The 77th ranked football team, players joked, wandered in late, had their phones, half attention. And when I asked, or Chaz asked the coach, what's the difference between number 3, number 77? He says, well, you have a number 3 team and a number 77th ranked team. And what's the difference? The difference is in the intention of the players, he said. We have the same athletes for the most part, but different standards. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. The uncomfortable recognition of truth. Your team shows up how? This is so important. Your team shows up how you've taught them to show up. Not through what you say, but through what you accept. Right now, you accept mediocrity, preparation, mediocre effort, mediocre follow-through. You call it hitting metrics, but metrics without standards just produce activity theater. The words stung because they were accurate. That evening, Ethan went home. He didn't go home again. He sat in his office, his legal pad in front of him, and wrote a single question at the top. What is our standard? Let me ask you all this. What is your standard? Can you say it succinctly? And this is not about putting a mission statement on a wall that you spend a week putting together and then no one knows what it says a month later, or a value vision. This is about a core belief in how you live. And by the way, If there is a problem in the business, guess whose fault it is? The leaders. Jocko Willink, great leadership book on extreme ownership. So Ethan sat there at his office past midnight, not talking about corporate values, not what sounded good in a deck, the actual daily way that they would live and the culture that he would create. He thought about the best sales calls he ever witnessed. The ones where Sarah, his newest rep, built genuine trust, the way she listened more than she pitched, the way she admitted when she didn't know something instead of faking confidence. He thought about Marcus, who could hit his call volume but left prospects feeling manipulated. The difference wasn't skill, it was character. By midnight, he had it. Every conversation builds trust. Every action raises the bar. The next morning, he called Kelly and Derek into his office. I want to show you something, he said, turning the legal pad toward them. Kelly read it aloud. Every conversation builds trust. Every action raises the bar. She looked up. This is good. But you know, it won't matter unless you live it. Right? I know, Ethan said quietly. That's what scares me. So the following Monday, Ethan gathered the entire sales team. No PowerPoint, no metrics on the whiteboard, just a simple sign mounted at the entrance to the sales floor. Every conversation builds trust. Every action raises the bar. Starting today, Ethan said, this is our standard, not an exception, a standard, or not expectation, a standard. It's how we operate every call, every email, every intention. Jenna rolled her eyes. Marcus smirked. Sarah leaned forward, curious. I know this sounds like corporate BS, Ethan continued, so let me be specific. If you exaggerate a feature to close a deal, you're violating the standard. If you try to manipulate a prospect who said no, you're violating the standard. If you prioritize your commission over their actual needs, you're violating the standard. The room shifted uncomfortably. So, Leah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it right there and we can talk about the rest of the story. But I think that's good just to have a conversation about what happened next with them and how that standard and implementing the standard can be really difficult because it's not just some words that people do one time. You really need to have it so people get so sick and tired of hearing it that they actually start to live it. Questions?
I love that. Yeah, that's such a powerful story. And it, when you picked this title, it really made me start to research and study myself. Okay, what are the standards? What are the expectations? And how am I showing up? And we're going to ask some questions. I know we're going to have some questions in the audience, and you've got some new fans here and friends. So I want to welcome a few people. I want to welcome the amazing Miss Nick Agai Galindo. She is the founder of Guiding Brilliant Writers and absolutely incredible publisher. So when you're ready to publish your next book, please reach out to my friend Nick. And Meryl, great to see you, my friend. Happy Wealthy Wednesday. And this will be Worldwide Wealthy Wednesday very, very shortly because Meryl is promoting me everywhere. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're going to go viral because of him. And then we've got my Gita girl, Miss Rosie. Great to see you. She's got some big announcements on the way. Very excited for what she's got going on. You can share your stuff in the chat. Remember, this is your opportunity to engage. I want you to meet somebody in the audience. I want you to connect with people and also share who you are and what you do. So when I think of standards, it really made me think, and you said, can you say it succinctly? And I know my team doesn't even know this. So I'm really kind of, you're exposing me here, but listen, I'm here to be the example so that you guys can all learn, okay? So one thing for me is I say I'm forging leaders of character. In other words, I'm not here for them to be a follower. I'm raising leaders. I want them to take leadership and lead themselves in their own business. And people of character, right? It's what you do, just like you alluded to. Are we putting the customer first in every situation, or we think of our commission, our pocketbook? And then I think of the standards that I have for myself. how am I showing up for myself? What are the things that I'm doing for myself here? Something like on a wish list, or do I have a standard that, no, this is what I do. I get up and I do these things regardless of how I feel, because all of us feel that uncomfort. All of us would rather stay in the snuggly bunny slippers, but then how are you showing up for yourself? If you can't take care of yourself, how can you really try to take care of others? So those were some of the thoughts that I had. And interesting enough, I did a really quick talk about it on our training on Monday. But my first question to you, Chaz, is really help us to understand, because I think sometimes the words are used interchangeably, standards and expectations. I think that people think that they're one and the same. So would you really help us to unpack what is the difference? What is a standard and what is an expectation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to do a quick screen share, and just go showing you something. It'll just take like 10 seconds to really give everyone a word picture out there, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to show you something that ingrains in the hearts and minds of your team, so that when they walk into the office, or in this case, onto the field, this is what they think. Now, this is from Notre Dame, and this is what I do with teams, is once they have the standard, as their team members are walking into the office or the sales bullpen or whatever it is, they're hitting the sign so they know to leave what just happened at home or what's going on. They are walking in, and this is how they are to live. So let me share this real quick, and then we'll circle right back.
Awesome. Oh, let's see. I think I have to put it up.
Did that not share?
It did, but I think I cut it off. So could you try it again?
Yep, let's do it again. Boop. All right, here we go.
I love it.
That is, when I bring this up with my clients, it's like, we're going to do what? I'm like, it's the little things that make a big difference. And if you don't change the minds of your people that are coming into the office, and if you don't live it, they're not going to embrace it. And so you need to show them by example. So just by doing the physiology of hitting whatever that sign is when you're walking into your office, it gets people ready, because they're leaving what just happened, and now they're stepping into a standard. So to your question, Leah, standard is how you show up. Expectations is what you do. Anyone can show up and, hey, we're going to make 50 calls today. We're going to reach out to 5 current clients. It's how you show up when you're reaching out to people. It's a slight change, but that slight change will transform your entire culture, and the people that you're speaking to, you have a standard, they'll notice it. And that's a key differentiator.
Yeah, I love that, because in karate, we bow at the door. And a lot of times people think that's out of respect, and it is, but it's also a sign for us to leave our troubles at the door. Some dojos actually have like a trouble tree, and you actually do that physiology. And for me and my team, one thing that we do, and Miss Sharon Byrne can let us know, what do we do when we get together? I talk to them about winners win. That's the first thing we start off. What is your winners win? Listen, leave whatever happened at the door. I want to know what happened great for you, whether it was your faith, your family, your finance, your fitness, your fun, philanthropic, or food. Like, what's going on with you? And so that's how we kick it off. So I absolutely love that. I love that. And I love Notre Dame football. What's that movie? You know the movie I'm talking about.
You're talking about the guy who made the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget. I forget his name.
Rudy, Rudy Rugged.
Rudy, yeah.
Rudy,
No,
yes, I love that movie. I cry every time. I cry every time. Okay.
Yeah, Rudy.
So that's a great way to really help us to understand this, like how we show up. So how does this translate, or does it all, are you only really addressing teams like people who are building a team within their business, or can this translate into other areas?
It translates every parents. Who's a parent out there? Put a Y in the chat. Okay. It's not what you say, it's what you do. It's leadership is caught more than it's taught, because you can say whatever you want to, but people aren't looking at what you say, they're looking at how you live your life. And so if you're living as a hypocrite, then people are like, they'll have no respect for you. They're not going to follow you. You're just going to be not a leader. You're just going to be taking a walk because no one is following you.
Right. Yeah. And I think so much about my precious grandson who's 6 years old. And it makes me so sad sometimes, because I think of all the things that I didn't show up the way I wanted to with my kids. But thank God he gives us a restart with our precious grandchildren. And children really will take things that we do. We don't have to say anything. One thing, I have a standard. He knows that we have to put our shoes away properly. Even if you're taking them off just for a minute, we don't ever toss our shoes. Now, he may not put his shoes away properly when Gam Gams is not there, but when I'm there, he knows, oh, Gam Gam's here. He puts his shoes nice and proper, because that's a standard, right? But I don't say it. What do? I do it. I show him that I intentionally put my shoes away. So really, it is about having attention to detail. So what are some of the most, maybe, and I get like the restart, starting out your business that way, starting out your team that way, but what are some big things that you see that are maybe blind spots when building a team?
Yeah, so and I'm going to focus on the standards, if that's okay.
Yes.
So everything evolves from the leader. As I mentioned with Jocko Willink in the book, great book, by the way, leadership book, Extreme Ownership. If there is a problem in the business, it's the leader's fault. And so you have to be, when I go on through this story, Ethan said, I'm going to show up, and we're going to keep each other accountable. And if you see me make a mistake, and so you have that, when you set the standard, all of a sudden it's going to, he loses some people because he set the standard. He lost his best sales rep because he set a standard. He had people calling him out because he set a standard. And so there's that friction that happens as you're working through this. You have people like, oh my gosh, this is just some like baloney we're going to do. This will go, this too shall pass. Okay, this too shall pass. So it's being consistent, it's being persistent, and it's continuing on. It took them 6 months to start to own the standard and start to live it. It wasn't until they got sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired of hearing the standard. Every time there was an opportunity where Ethan failed, he would say, you know what? I messed up, guys. This is it. Because people, and this is a key point, people don't want a perfect leader. They want a leader who is real. And when you have a leader that is real, authentic, and transparent, people will follow that leader, because all of us make mistakes. It's the leaders that own those mistakes transparently and tells their team, hey guys, I messed up. That is so key. So when you're making a team, the standard starts at the leadership, and we're talking standards. The leader, when making mistakes, because it's so easy with ego to not want to say something, but when you start living out of humility instead of ego, that's a true superpower. Ego repels, humility attracts.
That is brilliant. I love this comment here, Chaz. Could you address this? Standards, values, and ideals are my boundaries. So this can get into a different conversation, but
Yeah, most definitely.
keep it on the standards. Gosh, while you were talking, I was going to. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask. I think that there is a real challenge for leaders to be that transparent and to allow themselves to be accountable to their team without feeling like they're losing their team. What would you say to that?
Let me drill down and make sure I understand that. So are you saying that if they're transparent, they're basically weakening their position as a leader?
Yes, because I've seen that happen.
Yeah. So it's, if you have the standard and you're living to it, and then you as a leader, people know it. If you don't address it and own it, then that's how you lose them. As far as, can you give an example of something that maybe someone would be authentic or trans? I mean, you as a leader, you know, you're not there to air your dirty laundry and all these problems and challenges you have. I mean, we're in a professional environment and you're there based on the standards within the business. And when you fail those, then you own those transparently. So it's not about, hell, you know what? Yeah, when I did this. It's about within the atmosphere and the culture. You know, obviously in relation, what Leslie was saying is, you know, within relationships, I mean, if you have romantic relationships, friendships, if we don't set standards, the standards will set the boundaries. And if we don't have those standards, then we just allow people to walk all over us. And so I loved your comment on that. Standards, values, and ideals are my boundaries. So, and I would ask you, Leslie, just to kind of drill down, what is the standard? What are the ideals and the values? Because we say that, and I appreciate so much you bringing that up. It's really get into that. What are those standards? What are those values that you live by? Because if you don't do that, then other people will set the values and standards for you because they won't respect you because you're not setting those boundaries.
That is so good. And as you were talking, I made a connection. The leaders that I've seen that have gotten kind of off the path is that they did kind of what you were sharing, is that they kind of overshared the laundry. Would you say like the dirty laundry? Mm-hmm. And it's different than being vulnerable or just being allowing yourself to say, hey, this is where I fell down or I stumbled a little bit. And now I'm going to get on track. Thank you for holding me accountable. So that's what I've seen in some of the leadership. I've had some incredible leaders, and most of them are amazing. But unfortunately, sometimes, you know, we're not perfect. It's difficult to be a leader and have a lot of people looking towards you. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure that can come with it. So you have to grow into it.
Yeah. And you know what? And it's okay if you make mistakes. And it's just about, as you're learning and as you make mistakes, that's where your team. And again, people don't want a perfect leader. There isn't a perfect leader, by the way. They want a leader who is real. And in this context, it's just, if you mess up and you make a mistake, you own it. That's going to develop a strong bond with your team because they're like, oh, he's owning it. And I'm curious, I just had a question for people in the audience. How many companies have you worked for where they set a standard, you knew the standard, it was crystal clear, and the leader lived the standard? I'm curious. Give me a percentage out of all the companies you worked for. Give me a percentage where they had a clear standard, you knew the standard, they lived the standard, and the culture was the standard. You knew when you walked in that office door, things changed. Curious, a percentage of all the companies that you worked for, what's the percentage of companies you worked for where there's that clear standard?
For me, only one.
Yeah. I
haven't had that many jobs though. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've only had a handful of jobs, but I think it's not just exemplifying the standard, but it's articulating it succinctly. That's really what I'm picking up. Having a standard that is articulated succinctly, that everyone knows, they can say it. If you bonked them over the head in the middle of the night, they knew what that standard is. And I think that's where I'm seeing a lot of my leadership isn't always doing that.
Yeah, I don't, there's one company that I can think of that I worked with, and my boss, he could be really cruel. He was a former Marine. And so there were some definitely problems with his leadership. But when I joined the company, I knew that I had to step up to another level. And because of that, it took my career to another level. And I evolved into a different and better person. Yes, he had some flaws and whatnot, but he just set a standard that was high. And I can't remember really any other company. I've worked for, I don't know how many organizations, many. That's the only one that Sharon said 0. Yeah, the leaders 20%, the company 5%. Wow. Yeah, we can get so wrapped up, and Leah, you know this, I have my tabs, which is tactic, technique, attitude, behavior, strategy. And if those are not together, you're not going to be able to identify and attract new clients predictably. But as I was working with a company and I realized there was something that was missing, and that's making sure, because I was getting frustrated, I was working with companies, I'm like, what's going on here? I'm showing them, I'm going through everything, I'm holding them accountable, and and it was the standard that was missing. So it was something that I missed as I was consulting and coaching businesses, that I realized the standard wasn't there. And so I learned from that 3rd ranked football team, the 77th ranked football team, it was just crystal clear. There's just a different standard. And that standard, if you have a leader that really sets it and lives it, then it will be embraced and it will be the culture that the company creates. And again, just like with Ethan, he lost his best sales rep. When you set standards, you're going to lose some people you may not want to lose, but in the long run, it's going to be the best thing for you and the business.
Okay, so that brings me to my question here. This is the situation. The name, so we're name anonymous, but we had a company event, big company event, and it was, it was promoted that this is going to be a big event, and we are all coming in with our tuxedos and, formal attire and stuff. And one of the agents showed up in a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops. And that I'm aware of, no one said anything to him. His leader didn't say anything to him. The executives didn't say anything to him. But then afterwards, there was a lot of that talk about it. So how could that have been addressed? Who should have addressed that? And give us the language on how maybe that could have been handled, because it was not handled. It was kind of like everybody kind of ignored it, but then it was an issue for pictures and all that kind of stuff. So help me with that, Jazz. I'm phoning a friend.
Yeah. So phoning a friend. You need to put So You Want to Be a Millionaire music in the background.
There you go.
So, well, first and foremost, was this person with a different organization and for an event with a lot of different companies showing up? Just so I get context?
No, one company, one team event. He's at all the, ideas of what we're supposed to be having. They were very, very clear. The expectation was really clear. We all knew what was the.
Was it, you said expectation. So expectation is you show up at the event. The standard would be the event like black tie.
Right.
So well, first of all, if I was that individual and I showed up, I would probably be very embarrassed, and I would probably like, oh man, I'll be right back. But since he showed up, I would definitely have, you don't do it publicly, obviously. And you don't want to be part of the gossip tree. I mean, that's just wrong. It doesn't do you good. Anybody that comes and starts gossiping about, can you believe that it's like, it doesn't. I would, at the event, I would pull the guy aside personally and say, we'll just make the guy's name up, Bob. Hey, Bob, you know what? You show up and you do really good work. I mean, if he does, you don't make stuff up. But this event, and it could be that he just didn't have a clue just because how he was raised. You know, I know with Gen Z and whatnot, there's a very casual atmosphere. But if you go to even Gen X or, you know, the baby boomers, you know, it used to be you show up in a tie just to go to work. You know, now the standards they've been really relaxed. But someone, either he didn't grasp it, but just having a conversation with him and say, just so you know, when we have an event like this are not only the expectations to show up on time, but the standard is we dress like this. So I don't know what happened with the communication and if it wasn't happening up front, but something was missed. Either cognitively he didn't get it, and maybe there's a problem there. But when something happens, and addressing it is always never in amongst everyone. Anybody been berated by your boss in front of people? I have. I actually wrote 17 letters of resignation one year after going through a really dark time in my life, and I was trying to get my life back together 21 years ago. And this guy would berate me all the time. So that is an example of a terrible leader, a terrible boss, a toxic environment. So I would just pull him aside and say, hey, and in a firm, assertive, empathetic way, communicate with him and make sure that he really understands what happened, because maybe he didn't. I mean, if he stayed at the event with flip-flops and a t-shirt, everyone else is in a black tie, I mean, it just, there's a disconnect there.
And what I'm thinking is I love what you're helping with, because I think the language was black tie and formals. However, I don't know that there was a visual, like there should have been like the poster with like an example. Okay, this is the attire. This is what we mean by black tie. I mean, for him, maybe he's never been at a black, I don't know him well. Maybe he's never been at a black tie event. Maybe he didn't know that was what that all encompassed.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid going to a cotillion, if you guys know what that is. And there was a black tie event, and my mom grew up East. She goes, oh, this is what a black tie event means. This means you have a black, I mean, you know, for the men and for the women, this is what is expected. But if she didn't tell me that, I wouldn't have a clue.
Right.
I probably wouldn't have shown up with the t-shirt and flip-flops, but it was definitely someone showing me exactly, because I'm curious in the chat if you see the words black tie, if you know what that means. I didn't when I was 20, but I do now. So many years later.
Yeah, there was definitely a time when I didn't know. The first formal event that I went to, the first time I went to a company event, I was so blessed. I had an incredible girlfriend. She's like, this is what we do. This is how we get ready. This is what we buy. This is how we do our hair. Like, she literally had to hand carry me through the whole thing. You go get your nails done professionally, because I just didn't know. I'd never been to those kind of events. So I was blessed. I could have been that person showing up in the wrong time for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah. So do you want to hear the completion of the story with Ethan?
Yes, we do. Let's get to the story.
Okay, so I thought that was if you're just joining us, we just talked about Ethan. I'm not going to go through the entire story up to now, but they were doing expectations, they were hitting numbers, but the standard was missing. And so they came up with a standard, and the standard was every conversation builds trust, every action raises the bar. And so he addressed this with his team, and, you know, people were like rolling their eyes, you know, it just like, oh, here we go again. So over the next 6 months, the culture changed, not overnight, really important, but through steady, relentless attention to the standard. When Marcus exaggerated a demo call, Ethan pulled him aside. That wasn't accurate. Our standard is trust. Now, you notice he didn't say you screwed up. He brought it into the group. So he didn't say you messed up. Our standard is trust. What would it look like to redo that conversation? So then he asked him. So he's bringing him into the conversation so he can learn from that. Marcus bristled. I was just positioning. I know, but positioning without truth erodes trust. Try again. A few reps left. Derek, who spent 20 years in the wins at all cost Oracle culture, resigned after just 3 weeks. This isn't for me, he admitted. I respect what you're building, but I can't unlearn what I've learned. So this is what happens when you set standards. Marcus was his best sales rep, and he left, and he was gone. Sarah thrived, becoming a top performer, not through volume, but through genuine relationships. Jenna, who had been coasting, suddenly found a new gear. I forgot what it felt like to be proud of my work. Whew! When you have a standard, your employees show up and your team shows up and they're living it, and it's something deep, deep, deep inside. By 8 months, by month 8, the numbers told a story. Discovery meetings increased 37% with fewer calls. Close rates jumped 23%. Customer retention hit an all-time high. Referrals doubled. By the way, when you have a standard where you're going with the intention to serve, not sell, not only will you attract and not repel, your clients and your prospects will notice this. But the real change was qualitative. Prospects leaned in during calls. Customers spoke differently about SummitWorks. You guys are different. When contractors told Sarah, I can't put my finger on it, but I trust you. How many of your prospects have told you, I trust you? Wow. Think about that. So 1 year after installing the sign, Ethan stood in remember the sign at Notre Dame? Ethan stood in the same conference room where Chaz had first challenged him. This time he was leading a session for new hires. Before you walk onto our sales floor every day, he said, you'll tap that sign. Physiology. It's so important to not just have a sign, but people physically, where the physiology is involved, because that will shift your mindset and that will shift your perspective. Tap that sign, not because it's a rule, but because it's a reminder of who we are. A new hire raised their hand. What if I mess up? You will, Ethan said. We all do. The standard isn't perfection. It's honesty about our failures and commitment to raising the bar. That evening, Ethan finally made it home for dinner. Remember, just a year ago, he was telling his wife he was late because he was trying to get things working together and he was isolating himself. So he made it home for dinner. Meredith, his wife, noticed the difference immediately, not in his schedule, but in his presence. You're here, she said, not meaning physically, but actually here. I am. Ethan said, hugging his daughters tight, I finally am. 18 months after implementing the standard, SummitWorks hit 22 million in revenue. But Ethan rarely talked about the numbers anymore. When other founders asked the secret, he told them about the sign. About standards. I'm getting goosebumps right now. About standards versus expectations. About the daily work of embodying excellent expectations. Tell people what to do, he said, but standards shape who they become. So.
That is so amazing. I'm writing that down. That's another gold bar, Chaz. You've dropped a ton of gold bars, a ton of weight. And I said we need more standards, not just in our company culture, in our daily lives. I mean, we can all be leaders. We're all leaders of something. You may not have a team, but how many of you, and there are many leaders on LinkedIn that are here in the chat right now. Our Queen Dr. Leslie Flowers, she is definitely a leader in our community, and she does have a standard. I can tell you that she has expectations. She runs her event in a certain formality, and we all know it, and we all respect it. We show up differently to her. I think we put our black ties and our formals on when we come to her events because of what she's not only what she's done, but through osmosis, setting those standards and expectations too. Woo.
It's a game changer. It really is. And again, connecting the physiology. And when I was doing this with one company within the last year, I told them, I shared the story about the Notre Dame and all these different things. And, you know, after 30 days, I asked the sales reps, what's your standard? One person knew part of it and the other 4 sales reps didn't. So I brought the team together, and there was the founder, the president, and the VP of sales. And I said, how often do you talk? So I put a grade card where every month they would say, how many times did you talk to? If you failed, do you say, I failed and I came below the standard? And they put a sign up on the wall, but they didn't say anything about it, because I said, have them hit the sign. They thought that sounded cheesy. I'm like, it's not cheesy. It's the difference between mediocrity and excellence. And so I kept doing this, and every month after month after month after month, they finally started getting it, because I said to them over and over and over again, until they get sick and tired of being sick and tired of hearing the standards, they're not going to embody it and they're not going to live it. And if they don't see it in you, they're not going to live it themselves. And so they just thought if they put a sign up on the wall, like many people, how many people has been in a company that has a mission statement, a value statement that's in the conference room, but no one knows what it says?
Yeah.
That's little or no value whatsoever. This is something you have to live. And this is something, and that's why that tapping the sign, slapping it, whatever, it just shifts the physiology. And I'm being redundant on purpose, because if you don't do these things that connect people with how they're living and how they're stepping out of where they were into, you've put the standard here, you fill in the blank, this is the standard that we're going to live, then they're not going to get it and they're not going to pick it up.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's going to be painful, because you're going to have, when you really start instituting it, you're going to have people that you really are contributing short term that are going to be gone. But you don't want people that are going to be contributing short term and not long term.
Yeah.
Does that sound crazy?
No, it sounds realistic. I'm making a lot of connections. And what comes up for me is what our Queen Dr. Leslie Flowers says. It's a pattern interrupt, right? When we're actually doing the physiology, we're interrupting our normal pattern, which is just walking through the door, sitting down, getting out your notepad, which you normally do. So that's really, really incredible. So we're kind of winding down here. How would we kind of put this all together? Like, if we're kind of really lost in the sauce, like a meatball with this, where should we start?
I was just having that word that in my mind, lost in the sauce like a meatball. Okay. If anyone, I'd be happy to do a gap analysis like I did for Ethan, not his real name. I to protect the guilty, I changed the names. I'd be happy, you could reach out to me on LinkedIn and we could do a gap analysis. I'd be happy to do that with you all. It doesn't cost anything. It's complimentary. That would be a good starting point. But practically right now is I would get out ChatGPT. And this is where I find ChatGPT or any AI tool is really good. I want to set standards, not just expectations, and say, kind of like the Notre Dame football team slaps to play like champions today. I want the change to be organic, and I want it to start with me. What's the best way to set my standards? Ask me questions one at a time, so that you can have information that create a standard. And so then instead of not just asking 10, 20 questions, just one question, one at a time. And so this is where I find AI is really helpful. And then if you go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, then you can craft a standard. And many times it's not just like, with Ethan, he's like overnight, but typically it's going to take you some time to come up with something. It can't be manufactured on what you hope. It's actually how you're going to live, and it's a part of who you are. So who are you? Or do you need to make some change and change your standards? Because once you have a standard, just like Ethan, when he screwed up, his team members called him out. And it was a culture that people started living. So I hope that answers your question on that.
Yes. And I have another question. And if you have a question, put your comments in the chat.
Please do.
My question is, can you do this, or how would you implement this in doing presentations? So they're not necessarily your team that you're meeting with on a regular basis, like in your organization, but maybe you're going to be doing a presentation. Is this something you can implement in that kind of a situation where you're leading them for that hour, for that time that you're doing your talk?
Okay, so is this a talk with another organization? What's the context of it?
Yeah, so doing a leadership talk or doing a talk about, financial services, you're giving, an informational talk.
Okay, and you want to incorporate standards into your talk?
I would ask, should I incorporate standards into my talk?
I would. I wouldn't use the word standards though,
Okay.
because then it's going to sound salesy. Right. We are a company that live with integrity. That was, then they're just going to yeah, right. It's how you conduct it. Here's a simple example. So I was doing something new. I have this transformation adventure for entrepreneurs where they discover their God-given identity. And that's game changer, because it's no longer about fulfillment or purpose, but we live out of who God created us to be. And so as I changed this over, I noticed that people were showing up a little bit different. Why? Because I was kind of feeling my way through the process, and I create sales processes, and there was some insecurity in me with how I was going about doing it. And so as I was sitting there and praying and going back and forth with ChatGPT and just questions asking myself, and I was praying, it's just like, people won't look at you how they look at you more than how you see yourself. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not showing up as blank, as the authority. Now, not authoritarian, really important, but the authority and setting clear dynamics for a conversation, what's going to be discussed. And so just realizing that it was kind of flimsy and how I was communicating. So people were kind of like half attentive, half not attentive. So this is something new that I did, that I realized that I was not inserting a standard into the conversations, which I had normally done with my call to client process that was very succinct. Okay, in the next 20 minutes, we're going to do boom, 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 and we're going to cover this, after building some rapport, so you have that genuine connection. And then at the end, we're going to talk about next steps, if it makes sense. If not, no worries whatsoever. Any questions before we start? So now I'm communicating the standard without communicating the standard. Does that make sense?
Yes. I love that.
That's right, Sharon. Our divine blueprint.
Let's see. Did she say? There you go. I love you, Makita girl. Absolutely. This has been so incredible. I appreciate you so much. You've made some new fans and friends. I know people are going to reach out to you. What is the best way for people to connect with you, Chaz?
Yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can send me an email, chazhorn@chazhorn.com. Very easy. First, last name, as you see it right here. First, last name at first, last name, not Chaz.horn, Chaz_, chazhorn@chazhorn.com, and put Leah in the subject line, and then I'll know where you saw me, and I'll know, then we can carry on a conversation. And also, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, put Leah, because I get a lot of people who reach out to me on LinkedIn. I mean, we all have this. They reach out, then all of a sudden you have a message this long with 10 links in it. Can I get a witness? Does that happen to you? A little bit of a hyperbole, but not much.
Yeah. Well, great. I know people are going to want to connect with you. A lot of people are going to share this. I ask you, who's a leader you know who could use this information? Please share this with them, tag them in the comments, and please reach out to Chaz and follow him. He delivers so much incredible content. And believe it or not, he has open forum where he takes questions live, which is very unusual, but he will literally allow you to ask questions live on his week. How often do you do that, Chaz?
Well, I was doing it twice a week. That was when we did the audio event.
Okay.
But LinkedIn took that audio event last December, I believe. It was December. So I'm not doing that as much, but I was just thinking, and I did that for like a year and a half, twice a week. But I'm looking to get back into doing that. And so I'm just thinking about how to fit that into my schedule. It's without the audio event, it's really hard because in this atmosphere, you can have people that with the comments, but when you don't hear a voice.
Right.
So I'm thinking about maybe incorporating a Zoom so we can have actually people show up and whatnot. If you all have some ideas for me, please reach out because I want to do this on a regular basis again.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We always enjoy our Wealthy Wednesday, and soon this will be Worldwide Wealthy Wednesday. So I just ask all of you, who is the leader that you want to be? What are your standards? What is the bar that you need to raise? I think today was a deep conversation. I know I'm going to have a sidebar with me, myself, and I, and probably watch this a couple of times and probably reach out to you, Chaz. So I appreciate that so much. Remember, this is your year to rise up and thrive and make it the best year of your life. If you're here, it's because you're the one in your family. You're the one that's supposed to change your family's last name forever. And maybe that means financially, maybe that means you're the first person in your family to get out of debt. Maybe it means you're the first person in your family to buy a home or send your kids to college. I don't know what that means for you, but it's wealth today is intended to be a dynasty tomorrow. It's not how much money we make and just have a pile of money. It's how much that we pour into future generations and leave for generations. And so that's my time. That's our conversation today. Thank all of you who showed up. Great to see you, Sharon Byrne, Christina Sargato. Great to see you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Chaz. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Leah. I appreciate you as always.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Go on.